what is Heart IQ relationship coaching. One of the most powerful and one of the most inspiring parts of this approach is what we call a system-wide approach, an integrative method. And what that basically means is that when we're working with couples, for example, or we're supporting relationships to come into deeper intimacy, we understand deeply that no couple has dynamics that are completely isolated to just them. That there is a larger system that they are a part of that is influencing the dynamics. And therefore, we have to look at the environment that the couple and the individual is in, and also the community that they're part of, in order to address the real health of some relationships, in fact, all relationships. So, for example, if we were to start with a central point and imagine that dot is you, you could argue, if we were to go into the real detail, that within this circle of you, there are multiple parts. Some parts you like, some parts you don't like, parts that are strong, parts that are weak, parts that are old, parts that are young. And some of these parts are integrated and you have a good relationship with, and some of these parts you really don't like and you want to avoid, and some of these parts you don't even know exist. We call them your blind spots. And these have the most influence in your relationships and how you go about the world and how the world impacts you. It's like our underground subconscious. So far, so good? So one of the first things that you will do as a good as in, a Heart IQ coach that is applying the full model, would be to understand that an individual is a collection of parts. And that those parts will come up in relationship and they will be evoked, stimulated, and activated. Some will be activated too much, some will be depressed, repressed, and shut down. In other words, have you ever experienced the times when you've been in the presence of another and parts of you are hyper excited and some other parts go dormant? You've all experienced that, right? So we need to understand that we, by an individual, are already a community. We are a community of organs, of cells, and actually emotional, energetic parts. And when we understand that, we understand that the first priority as a Heart IQ relationship coach is to help an individual come into integration and good relationship with self. And that all partnership is a powerful, amplified vehicle to support that journey. That what if relationship was a key to awakening a wholeness here? So far, so good? Now, here's the interesting part, is that we then enter into relationship with another, doesn't matter about gender, and they too have these little parts. Some parts they like, some parts they don't like. Some parts are old, some parts are young, some parts are strong, some parts are weak. And as we interact, these parts kind of engage. They sometimes fight, they sometimes argue, they sometimes love each other, they sometimes have a whale of a time, sometimes they want to kill each other. They're all having interaction as we're going about this day and going about our lives. So the second layer of your coaching is not only to help the individual become healthy emotionally and energetically in their life lived, but to support the couple in creating a healthy container that can hold the two of them. And the safer this container is, the more intimate, the more rich, the more deep, the more beautiful this coupleness can experience each other in delight. When this container is fragmented and damaged, where trust is violated or broken, these two individuals act very independently of one another, and they don't know how to connect, build resonance and harmony. So you've got the first priority is helping the individual come into health and wholeness, which includes helping them connect to their deepest truth of themselves. Know thyself. Can they track what they're feeling? Do they know what they really want? Can they identify and become aware of their defensive strategies, their shadow ranges? Are they even aware of these different parts that have unmet needs, that are crying out for attention underground? This making sense? So we need to take care of the health of the individual, because if we ignore that and we only focus on couple work, the dynamics between partner A and partner B, and we miss and we don't study and we don't become experts at the individual human condition, the suffering and the pain, and how people relate to their pain on an individual level. If we don't understand human beings at a deep, deep level, no matter how brilliantly you build a safe container, this will always wreak havoc, and you will not be ultimately successful. But it goes one step further than that, because often couples are part of a larger system which we call family. Now, not everybody decides to have a family in terms of kids, but everybody has had a family. Either it's present, whether even if you've been, if you are adopted, for example, you have still got familial bonds and ties in the world. So everybody has an experience of family. Sometimes it's a broken experience, sometimes it's a healthy one, sometimes it's distorted. But there is a larger entity that's going on. And that is the family system needs to always be addressed when you're working with couples, for several reasons. Whatever is not working here, whatever is leaking, whatever emotional deficit is happening in the couple, it will be filled by the children. Now, you may not want to work with kids, but I'm telling you that those who are just working, if you're working with couples, you are going to have an impact on kids. And it's a brilliant thing, because when couples become heart intelligent, they begin to become more whole and they begin to own more of who they are. That automatically gets passed on to the children by osmosis, because they are absorbing the conscious and unconscious parts of you that are healthy and healed and unhealed. So basically, for example, if there was an opening here, and imagine this was a break in the container, and the way that could look like is, for example, let's say mum and dad aren't getting along, they haven't had sex in many, many years, they are cohabiting, they're friends, but there's something missing in intimacy. Perhaps there's an absent husband, not absent in terms of traveling, perhaps he's just not present, perhaps he just doesn't show up anymore, he just hangs out by the TV, and, the wife is feeling distraught about it, but doesn't know how to manage her pain, so she shuts it down, goes numb, pretends everything's okay, and they go about like this for several years. This isn't actually that rare, by the way. This is your bread and butter type of situation. Now, there are needs not being met, and there are needs not being spoken. On the mum's end, for example, or the wife's end, it could be, my need to be felt, seen and got by my man isn't there. And let's say, for example, they have a child, a son. And let's say in that moment, we have a third party in this larger container or this family system. Whatever need is not being met here, there's a risk that this being will substitute their need through the child. And suddenly, you get a weird family dynamic. You begin to notice that needs are being met, but they're being met through a role reversal. The child is now meeting intimacy needs of an adult. That's not okay. But the child doesn't know that's not okay. And it can happen both ways, and it can create a lot of dysfunction. Now, this is just one example. But can you see that if you're working with a couple, you need to understand the system that the couple is in to be able to effectively guide that couple in dynamics that are showing up, because you may actually feel into this being and they're actually okay. But they're okay because they've basically leached intimacy from their child. And when you ask them, are you doing that? What will their answer be? No, of course not. It's not something that is conscious. So you need to be aware of this. You need to be conscious of this as you are working with families. And even if you're only working with couples, you have to be aware. And therefore, an important question to ask is, do you have kids? And talk about the relationship that they have and how that is impacting their intimacy. So far, so good. Yeah? But there's also another piece here that we need to talk about, and it is not spoken in terms of, this has nothing to do with having or not having kids. Let's say, for example, this didn't exist. So kid is out of the picture. Let's say it's just a couple going about their life, moving through the world, having challenges. The thought is that this couple's problems exist only within their own contained reality. Therefore, when there are problems, the obvious thing is the thought of, there must be something wrong with me. I'm feeling this way. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I've got all this stuff. I can't meet you. I can't feel you. I can't, for some reason, we've reached this point where I just feel disgusted by you. I don't know where that's coming from. It's so common, in fact, where couples will come together and love is the first dominant experience, and over time these other things start to emerge in this container, and people start feeling like they're going crazy because it feels like, I don't know where this came from. And here's the key. There are generational patterns coming down the line from your parents and their parents and their parents. Generational, inherited pain body dynamics get passed down the line. And when our parents and our grandparents, when our grandparents don't know what's going on, whatever is not felt, not being aware of, not conscious, not being fully owned, it gets passed on. Likewise, the reason why this is such a critical thing to be giving to the world is because when you can help couples own more and to feel and to do with their pain something that's healthy rather than unhealthy, it prevents it from going down the line. So you have a unique opportunity to do something incredible. You get to end generational pain. You get to stop it in its track. It stops with them. It stops with you. So these patterns come in, and you can then see, especially if you're working with families, how the kids start learning this really early. Classic example, you know, my dad, my granddad, my brother, my uncle, the male line, we all use cheesy crap jokes as a way to bubble burst from intimacy. So when things get a little bit too intense, a little bit deep, a little bit heavy, a little bit hot, and suddenly this weird sense of humor comes out of nowhere. And like I hear it coming out sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, David, that's my dad's name. Like I can feel like in that moment I'm a little bit possessed by somebody who isn't me. The beauty of heart intelligence and the heart IQ method is that you start to see that the environment creates a huge amount of the impact to intimacy. And that the environment is created by our inner world, our couple container, the family system, either current with kids or the generational that's been passed on down from the past. And all of this impacts the environment. But there's still yet another layer. There is another important component of this whole systems approach. And that is community. A family or a couple stranded as an island will not be met. And if people, couples, individuals, and families are left to do it on their own, they will struggle. Now, it is so normal. If you were to ask people out in the world, the conditioned reality is families do it by themselves. They may have a bit of help by their grandparents, maybe a few friends babysit now and again, but you do not see community intact, collectively holding the village and being there, holding each other's backs and being a profound source of support, love, and encouragement as and when needed. Literally, couples and families are not meeting in circle to actually be healthy and whole. It is so foreign that to even speak such an idea or a vision kind of makes you frown and go, what? You mean we're not supposed to be 2.4 kids and have our own little thing and have that be it? And, you know, it's so common. I talk to couples all the time. And only when things get really bad do they seek out a therapist or a counselor. They say, oh, something's not working. We need to fix it. Or if there's a family, God forbid, we don't want to ask for help because it seems weak. Seems like there must be something I'm doing wrong. I must be not a good mother or father. Fill in the blank. So the beauty of what you're learning here is it's a community-based model where it goes far beyond simply working with couples. You get an opportunity to touch the lives of individuals, couples, families, kids, and most importantly, for those of you who wish to accept this mission, to take on the added beauty and opportunity of building community. Let me just share with you what Heart IQ relationship coaching is not. It is not a technique. That's really important to understand. It's not, and I'm not dissing or making wrong techniques. There are some incredible skills, techniques, tools that you can learn, whether it be EFT, NLP, and different strategies and frameworks around helping and transforming beliefs and, you know, all of that. Yet, Heart IQ is more about an embodied state of accessing your own unconditional loving presence, your own capacity to be safe for others, your own capacity to read yourself and be self-aware and embodied. It's an actual walking, talking version of what you want to elicit in another. And that's why this is so difficult. Is because if it was a technique, it would be easier to transfer. But as part of your learning as a professional, you have to embody it personally. And you can only take a client as far as you're willing and able to go personally. And if we hold this as a technique, partner A says this, partner B says that, then they have to be done in this particular way, it will feel very difficult for you personally to administer from the heart. It's a heart-centered model. It's built intrinsically on your felt sense. But felt sense is a skill that needs to be developed over time through experience. And that's why we build scaffolding around a house, to build a house, and then only to release the scaffolding later when you're done with it. But it is not a technique. It is also not a professional arm's length therapy. What I mean by that is that what will often, and by the way, you can do this if you want to. I'm just saying the actual system, the approach, doesn't sit well with arm's length therapeutic approaches. What that basically means is a lot of professional therapies, rightly so, distance themselves between coach and client or therapist and client in order to avoid transference, projection, and some things that could cause like a dependent state, which can confuse clients and create some weird merging and cross wires. All of that is good. At the same time, this model is not built on anyone being superior. It's not built on anyone being the professional. This model is actually intrinsically designed for you to be with, not telling. And that means keeping somebody at arm's length because you don't want to infer that you care too much, and you don't want to offer them a hug when needed because that might create too much of a confusion. That's not actually, personally, what I believe is what this work is all about. This is about being with each other. It's about, yes, you're a leader, you're a guide, but don't let that ever for one moment make you in a professional role that is immune to what is happening over there. you being impacted by your clients' stories, you showing your own vulnerability, you offering a hand and a hug and a tear, you being there, showing up in your own heart, I believe is the healing model of tomorrow. Not just watching, asking the right questions, and telling people to hug themselves. That actually happens. So this type of, and I'm not talking about, new clients come in and you're like, come over here. It's not the opposite either. It's just really weird. It's like, but if we're truly honoring this idea that we are powerful influences in the individual, couple, family, community life, we ourselves should be part of that family, part of that community, not some distant observer that is kind of like tweaking from afar. Open your hearts to your clients. Don't be afraid to show yourself fully. Heart intelligence and heart IQ is all about helping an individual, a couple, a family, a community operate from a place of joy, to come into joy, that life is about joy, that life is meant to be joyful. And that joy is the natural predominant state of all human beings. And when we're not in that place, it doesn't mean something's broken or wrong, but like again, the hose pipe has got a kink. And therefore we have the opportunity to unkink or uncross wires that allow joy to flow through again. Now, joy doesn't mean happiness. It doesn't mean feeling good and feeling positive. It means allowing yourself to be present with whatever's moving without resistance. Now, that's very different. I want you to hear that definition. Joy is not happiness and positive thinking. It's being with what is without resistance. Therefore, allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Pain, suffering, joy, hope, despair, love, anxiety, boredom, whatever it is, openness, closure, disconnection, numbness. You take it in and you be with it. And when you're with it without resistance, you get to relax and a different type of joy begins to fill you. It's not the thrill of a high. It's this deep, relaxed sense of everything's okay. Now, when you come from that place and you bring that into your relationship, how can it ever not be amazing? And that's your opportunity. That's what you're doing with couples, is bringing them into more joy by helping them love what is. As coaches in this work, you get an opportunity to awaken a couple's operating system. You have the privilege of teaching a brand new language of operating with other, where the conditioned way of how we've communicated, interacted, related can get thrown out of the window or added to so that they have incredible new ways to connect, to thrive. And it will create so much relief because they can finally go, oh, I was going crazy. Oh, no one's ever told me that. If only people could teach me this at school. If my parents had showed me this, it would have all been different. You become the master translators, sharing with them in a moment, in 30 seconds, something that dropped so deep that they've spent 20 years in therapy trying to figure out because they thought there was something wrong with them based on who did what to them, how and when. And then they suddenly realize, like, what? I'm just carrying this down the line and it can end with me? Oh my God. And you'll have made an impact, not just with that life, but with every single life that life touches. And I think that is very, very inspiring.